Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tech Life Stories. On the podcast today, I'm joined by Katrina Macdermid. Katrina is an entrepreneur, a co-founder of ITIL Global. She's an award-winning author, and she's going to tell us all about her book, Humanising IT. Humanising IT applies human-centered design principles to the world of IT service management. She's a global expert in the ITSM field. She trains and advises international and publicly listed institutions. She's an ITIL Master, former ITIL Global Ambassador, and was a contributing author to all ITIL 4 official publications. She's the creator of Humanising IT podcast, where she interviews the most influential and powerful business leaders across the globe. I could go on, Katrina, more and more and more. I can see you blushing. How's the intro? Is that good for you?
That was perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Well, welcome. Lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. And once again, as I said before, what an absolute pleasure to be on your show. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem at all. And where are you? Because I know you like to travel. Whereabouts are you in the world at the moment?
I am actually at home in Sydney, Australia. It's probably the longest I've been home for the year. It's been about 4 weeks. But in freezing Sydney, Australia, people don't believe me. It gets cold here. It does.
No, I don't know. Okay, that's interesting to know. Okay. Well, look, I like to go straight in, and my opening question to everyone that comes on is, what made you get into technology? What was it that interested you about technology, or did you fall into it?
I fell into it, absolutely. I was a project manager most of my life, and even though I transitioned a lot of technology projects, I didn't even know what IT service management was.
Yeah.
As respectfully, a lot of project managers don't.
Yeah.
And, respectfully, I think that's some of the reason that we get products and services into IT operations that perhaps were done because they ran out of money or business requirements weren't written properly, but IT ops lives with that burden. So I was at a telco in Australia company, and I contracted all my life as a PM, and I took one of my first jobs, grown-up jobs at a telco, and they were paying for training. So I put my hand up, and that training was in ITIL, and I guess that's how my journey started in the IT service management space. And as you mentioned, Khan, I am an ITIL Master under the version 3 scheme, and I like to tell this story that when we were in the classroom and the instructor was going through the various certification levels, and he kind of brushed over what the ITIL Master was, and I said, "Excuse me, could you explain that more?" And he said, "Don't worry about it, it's too hard." And I thought, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And that was my catalyst. And that was my 2 years of becoming an ITIL Master and studying it, pretty much every book out there on IT service management, because the version 3 ITIL Master was extremely difficult. I'm not saying ITIL 4 isn't, but this is where we had to write a thesis, and I wrote 2 actually. And that's really how it all came together for me, or the start of it.
So how long ago was that when you studied ITIL and you made that transition from I suppose non-IT into IT?
It would have been in 2015 when I first started at Qantas Airways. That's when I decided to go into. I left the telco, went to Qantas, and I continued to do the training. Yeah.
So it's under 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Unbelievable, considering the some of the achievements you've achieved over the last 10 years. I think it's a great success story for any listener that's looking to transition at all. I think you've done really well for yourself, so you should be proud. No, definitely 100%. So let's talk about the business that you're a co-founder of at the moment, Humanising IT. Talk me through it, because we've obviously had a bit of an off-air chat about it, so I know a little bit about it, but it'd be great for the listeners to kind of get a better understanding of what is it exactly you do.
Certainly.
And why it came about as well. What was the need?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a long and sordid story, so grab your popcorn, listeners. Sit back.
Go for it.
When I was studying my ITIL Masters, I happened to be approached by a college in Sydney to do design thinking, to teach it, because the college thought that service design, as in IT service management service design, was human-centered design. And I'd never heard of human-centered design, and the college taught it. And me being me, I said, yeah, I'll come for the interview. And I Googled what human-centered design was, literally.
Yeah.
and
Love it.
I went for the interview, and we ended up speaking for quite a while. And I said, you know what, why don't I teach a bit of IT service management into your curriculum? So I co-facilitated, it was a 3-month course from memory. And I also continued to study human-centered design. And during that period, I had that aha moment is, why don't we do this in IT service management? It was that much, because I was learning all these wonderful techniques like personas and empathy mapping and, people putting people first. And that whole concept from my studying in IT service management was not a concept. It was literally following a process. And as you mentioned, also I do podcasts, and I did one recently with David Ratcliffe, who himself and a lot of members of his colleagues and peers were really responsible for writing what IT service management is today. And he basically said it was the beginning of it. And yeah, it was very process driven. And I still think, and it is a bit controversial, but I still do think a lot of the processes are very process driven. I think there's a positive change, but having said that, most IT professionals that are working in IT service management, from my experience, don't know fundamental tools and techniques of creating experience. And so from there, I thought, right, I'll do a bit of a plug. I wrote a book.
There it is.
As you said, there's a book, and it's called Human-Centered Design for IT Service Management. My advice to somebody that wants to write a book: don't.
Great plug in there. I love it.
It's a lot of work. Yeah, a lot of work. And I'm sure that David Burrow, who's a very good friend, that you know him as well, I'm sure he'll attest to this. It's a mission of love versus anything else. It's you're not going to become a millionaire, or certainly from writing a book. It's a mission of love.
Not yet.
But it served its purpose. I loved the whole concept, and it really started to bring attention around the world about what is humanising IT. And you asked about ITIL Global. I'm a co-founder, and Mark Basham is the co-founder as well. And the story goes, he read my book, and he loved it so much, we formed a company. And from there, we've developed training that's based on the book. So we now our business does training and certification. We've won awards for our approach to training, because I like to take it very lighthearted, because I think in IT service management, I always say, I have the opportunity to speak around the globe, that in IT we're from the same cult. We're all cut from the same cloth. We laugh at the same jokes. We've all got the same scars from how hard and difficult it is in IT service management. And the training is based around, just taking a laugh at ourselves as well.
That's good. And is the training face-to-face, or is it online, or a bit of both?
Great question. I'll plug again. It's based on an airline from my time at Qantas, because I wrote my master's at Qantas. So the training model is you can go economy, business, or first class.
I like it.
Thank you. So if you choose the economy version, it's an app, actually. So we essentially give you a link, and it's a bit like a Duolingo experience, and it's self-paced. The business class is aimed at organisations that want to do a team exercise, so it's blended. And then the first class model is a 1-day immersive boot camp, where we use a case study from an organisation, and we play it out through principles of design thinking to come to a solution, from problem to solution. So they're the three types of training, 3 modes of learning.
So who are the majority of your clients? Are they organisations, or are they individuals looking for training?
Yeah, great question. I like to say our mission is to certify every IT professional in humanising IT. So it's aimed for anybody that works in IT. And it's not a hard course. As I said, it's a fun, lighthearted approach to learn principles of design thinking. It's mixed. I mean, obviously, when we we have the opportunity to train organizations, the volume's a lot bigger than what individuals do. But, through the amazing, and I really want to say a heartfelt thank you to yourself and our community in IT service management, we get a lot of individuals that want to do the course, which is equally rewarding and fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. And how long has the business been going for now?
In earnest, I'd probably say about a year.
Okay,
So,
all right. So
yeah.
still in its infancy then.
It is. We're a startup, but we're doing. Mark and I often quite have to say, look, we're doing really well. We're winning major clients around the globe, and I'm not sure if you've seen my LinkedIn post. We're signing up partners in India, Europe, Asia. It's pretty awesome, actually. Yeah. So thank you.
No, really, really good. And I take, are you and Mark very much hands-on delivering the training?
I am.
You are? Okay. Okay. You said that like a tired I am.
No, Mark really looks after the stuff I'm really bad at, called governance.
Yeah. Okay.
And signing up partners and the strategic growth of the organisation. So that's his amazing strong point. And I'm more, I always say I'm the doer. And we have trainers as well, but essentially, yeah, I represent the training arm and Mark represents the strategic growth. Yeah.
Okay. So you're 1 year effectively into your journey. I can see that based on LinkedIn, things are going well, winning some awards, etc. What's next? Where do you see the business going over the next kind of like 5 years? Would you say?
Yeah, I would love for the business that this is a recognised certification and mandated for all individuals through industries. And really a really big growth spurt, if I'm going to be honest. That's what we call it, ITIL Global, to really... And we're also developing a training pathway. So at the moment, if you will, we're doing a foundation course. As I said, we're just teaching principles, and we don't go into a great depth. We don't attest that you're going to walk out and be a human-centered design expert, because you're not. And it's just a foundational, but we are building that pathway of higher certifications and levels. So we're about to release our second module. And that's called, a bit of a sneak preview. It's called Communications During a Major Incident and How to Be Empathetic.
Yeah, no, sounds good. So when do you think that's going to go live?
We hope probably in about 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
And again, if I may, like what I love about our concept is that my company also does consulting, so we do a lot of work in consulting, and this particular client wanted us to come in and improve how they do communications during a major incident. They're a big global company, and big companies were complaining about the communications. And we approached it, I think, initially in a traditional approach, what are your templates, et cetera, and then again, we practice what we teach. We apply design thinking principles to the contract or engagement, and we really found out through the problems or discovery stage is that when IT professionals are in a major incident, it's like they're on an operating theatre. They're a doctor, a surgeon trying to save the patient. It is a major incident, and so there's nowhere in the frameworks that really account for the experience of IT professionals. And they're being asked to save the patient and to give updates and to write it in a grammatically correct way, to ensure you're not breaching service levels or things like that. And as I said, their role is to save the patient, is to restore services. And so we really turned it around, and we've recommended, and the company will be doing it, is during a major incident, the all staff have to stop every 35 minutes, and which is, for well-being, is very important as well. It's stressful for incident managers, for everybody working on an incident, and to stop, and then that will provide the opportunity to give the comms to the relevant person, and then they can go back. So yeah, that was really, and so from that's why we've developed the course. Like, this is such a common issue that everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people complain about how poorly IT professionals communicate, and this addresses that gap.
Yeah. How long did you say the stop was for?
The
The stop you said
Oh, sorry, 5 minutes, but would
5
negotiate
minutes.
that. It
Okay.
depends, but and to me, it was again one of those aha moments. So, like, why don't we do that? Because it's a stressful situation, and we
Mm,
don't think about the well-being of IT people during an incident typically. And the PIR, I did a post on this. The PIR talks about the technical faults of the service or application or product, but do we do a PIR and the well-being of our IT people that went through that incident?
yeah.
It's very rare, and companies do. I think it's fantastic, but it's not something I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And I'm intrigued. 'Cause you mentioned you're a year in. How is entrepreneurial life compared to being, I suppose, an employee or not? I know you're being a contractor, but there are differences. And running a business is very. I run my own business. I know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
The stresses day in day out.
Yeah,
What has that looked like for you and Mark over the past year?
it's tough. I'll make it is very tough, and some days even I'll say this, even though I have people working for us. I'm like, I wish I had your job.
Yeah.
You're finishing, you're going on a holiday, and I'm not being resentful, but when you're an entrepreneur, you work hard, and
Yeah.
and I get quite annoyed, and I shouldn't. It's because I'm exhausted. I'll say that I'm exhausted. I need a break, But I literally, like, I was up at 5 o'clock this morning
Hmm.
to America, and now it's nearly 7 o'clock here, and this is a day for me. And people will say you've got choices. I don't believe you have as an entrepreneur in the beginning. I think that you have to work as again practice what I'm teaching, but well-being. But it's hard. It's very hard, as you know. It's stressful. Um, you know, you don't. I haven't had a holiday. I travel a lot. I get to see these amazing countries,
Yeah.
but I'm lucky to have half a day. And I'm sounding like I'm big noting myself. I'm not, but I'm just saying that it's hard, but it's equally rewarding, and if not more. And I couldn't. I mean, you never say never. Couldn't go back to a normal job
Yeah.
after the reward and success, and I love it. I do love it. Yeah, but as I said, it's hard.
It's hard. It is hard. I would say entrepreneurs' brains are wired very differently because I've run my business for over 10 years now, and I never ever stop thinking about business. It's really, really hard for my brain to switch off. It is. I'm being honest with you. Life's got a little bit easier because I've got people that can run the business for me because we're 10 years old. That will happen to you when you get to that stage. So you're not necessarily working in the business, you're working on the
Yeah,
business, which makes a big difference. But honestly, I'm going to bed thinking about business. I wake up thinking about business. It's all I think about. My brain is wired that way. I think an entrepreneur's brain is what is wired that way. But the work
yeah,
element, the working hard bit, it will get easier for you from you not having to do working in the business all the time. Once you've got some more trainers on board,
yeah,
it will just get a little bit easier for you. But yeah, it's not for everyone. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up
yeah. I
is
agree.
because there are going to be a lot of people listening or watching this podcast and hearing the success you've been on, thinking, "Oh, I can do that." But actually, before you go ahead and think about starting a business, think about the consequences you need to give up. Like there are going to be times when you are going to be working till all the way through the night. Maybe sometimes you are going to be seeing your employees leave and switch off, and you can't do that. You are going to have times where you might not be able to go and see your kids show after school or anything like that. That is the typical life of an entrepreneur. You,
Yeah,
yeah, it's about everyone else but you. So anyone that's listening or watching this, just think about that move before you go ahead and think it's an easy move because it's not an easy move. You do sacrifice a lot of your life being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, right?
you do. Yeah, and I'm not one of those people that listen to podcasts for inspiration, mainly because I don't have time. But I don't know. I've just never really been like that. But I think with social media, especially with feeds, you do get things pop in, and I do notice some posts. It's probably deliberate, how it works these days, about a life of an entrepreneur. And it's so true, all the things I read, that is, you work hard today so you don't have to work hard tomorrow, and
Yeah.
you sacrifice. And I saw one the other day about, you might have Steve Bartlett, that's his name,
Yep.
isn't it? The
No,
UK.
Steve. Yeah.
Yeah. He's amazing. He's like, from an inspiration. Every snippet he does, it's like, that is so. I really understand, and I learn from those little snippets he does. But he said one the other day that you might have developed a product and you're nearly at the end, and you go, you know what, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's happened to me.
Yeah.
It was happening to me, and I'll tell you a quick story. Part of my training,
Please.
I changed it a lot after listening to that. Yeah.
Based on the Steve Bartlett talk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And it's so, because I think we're wired that if you're given something to do, you've got to finish it to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, you might come to the end and go, well, actually, you know what, this is rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think I've done that in my business many times. I've looked at
Okay.
different products and services, and I've got to the end and thought, what am I doing? Like, sometimes there's your headspace at the time when you're thinking of a product or a service, or you think
Absolutely.
you're plugging a gap, and then you realise your headspace was in the wrong place at the time when you come up. So it's the typical life of an entrepreneur. But I think it takes a strong person to then say, actually, no, I'm not going to go ahead with that, rather than just going ahead with it and going ahead with it for the sake of going ahead with it because you put in so much man time and man hours into it. So these are the things that people don't realise that goes in behind the scenes of a day in the life of an entrepreneur. So yeah, I completely get it. I understand. I suppose a really good question I'd like to ask you, and this is based on you being an entrepreneur. If you could rewind and start again, what would you do differently?
I remember David Ratcliffe said this to me when I interviewed him years ago when I did my old series. Governance is something for any entrepreneur. And I used to hear it, I didn't, but I've been caught out. I would ensure that, and I'm sure when Mark listens to this, he'll laugh and he say, "Yeah, Kat, that's so important." That, and also really setting up a robust payment system. That was also advice from David Ratcliffe, because you've got to get paid. And so when you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to chase bills, and so setting up a really streamlined way, or a smarter way to actually get paid, would be also the other one. I think, I don't know, personally, what would I change? I don't know. I've made so many mistakes. But one thing I'll say to your listeners, I think, especially our community and people on whole, they're either very forgiving or forgetful.
Yeah.
I
think people are forgiving.
Yeah.
I think people are forgiving. I think if you're honest about things, I think people are forgiving. And I'm 10 years into my entrepreneurial journey, and I still make mistakes. So you will continue making mistakes. You learn from your mistakes, but you will continue to make mistakes, and you will try new things, and things will backfire on you. And you just got to stand up and keep going. That's all I can say to anyone considering, a life as an entrepreneur or starting out your own business. You can't give up. You have to keep going, right?
Yep, it's resilience, and and that is the other key word. You get so many knockbacks and so many hard days, as you know, and and I think, and you just said that, I don't think I used to be an entrepreneur. I think just through necessity and everything, I've become one. And the knockbacks you get, I think the old me or younger me would have go, I'm not doing this anymore. It's too hard. But now I'm like, you know what? I'll just dust myself off and wait for tomorrow. And and invariably I've learned that tomorrow does come, and it's a better day. Invariably, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I don't know what your brain's wired like, but mine is overdrive all the time. Every shop I go into, every service I buy, I think to myself, how could I improve that experience? I do. It's and my wife, I say to my wife, they could do that better, they could do this better. She goes, just stop it. You're like driving me mad, like, and I just can't help it. And because I think that way, like, let's be honest with you, if you can't keep a customer happy, you're in the wrong business of being on. It's all about the customer experience. And I think, even though they do very well, organizations like Amazon have got it spot on, because they base everything on the customer. If you're not happy with a product, no problem. Give you your money back straight away. You can even keep the product. I've had that many times before. It's all about the customer experience, and you get something delivered next day. It's what the customer wants. Every organization needs to think the same. It needs to think at the forefront, what does the customer want? What experience is the customer expecting? And anyone that's thinking about starting their own business, test the market before you go ahead and do that, right? Because I think everyone's got good ideas, and until you go to market and test it, you won't know if your market or your idea is marketable, that you can actually earn a living from, right? So
Exactly.
few little tips there.
But it's interesting you talk about experience, because that's what humanizing IT is about. And you talk about the customer, and was first. And we say in humanizing IT that it's unfair for IT professionals, because especially today we're being tasked with being more customer focused, as it's all about experience. And I disagree with that somewhat, because IT service management, this is a bit controversial, is not responsible for customer experience, because very rarely in IT do we get to speak to a customer. And when I do training or consulting, and it's usually the CIO or CTO cat, our people are just not customer focused. We're getting really bad reports. And it's not that it's the users that are unhappy, not customers. So IT service management is responsible for user experience, and in turn users are responsible for customer experience. But I'm training a big government department. I did the blended class today, business class today. We did a 2-hour slot. And as most people in IT are, as I said, we're all cut from the same cloth. Most of them are service desk analysts, and yes, they're being told they're not customer or user focused. And I am so passionate about this, and I actually get quite upset about it. It is not the people, it is the system.
Mm-hmm.
It is not, most people on level 1 are the most, beautiful, lovely people. They're on the lowest pay grade. They're expected to know everything. And they do such a great job. And it's because IT service management is broken.
Mm.
And that is what is not user friendly. And so what our consulting does is to change, the attitude and educate the decision makers. You need to change service management, not the attitude of your people, because the tooling, the company showed me today, they still have to fill out a form that's not very automated to get access. And again, that was, we say that it's designed by an IT person.
Yeah.
And, we say in the book and in the training that IT people are tasked with UX and CX. Mm-hmm. So every time we write a knowledge article, every time we design a workflow, every time we write code, that's all UX and CX. And we're not trained in it. And so this is why that, most experiences by users is so poor. Because, we're not UX designers, but your IT people are designing portals, user portals. They're designing forms and workflows. And I get really frustrated with that. And so when I say experience, I think that we need to invest in fixing up IT service management.
Mm-hmm.
Go
on. Please. No, please go.
And I say this, I don't, again, it's a bit controversial. I don't know if users want a great experience. They just want the technology to work.
They do. You're right. They're not bothered. Let's be honest with you. They just want to work. But when it does go wrong, they do want a good experience.
Absolutely.
It's all about, to the user, it's about speed. How quickly is it going to? Can it be fixed? Right. But if they're getting a first class experience at the same time, even better.
Well, very good.
Even better. I want to also talk about, because you're such a busy lady, you're also doing a podcast, right, for your business. So talk me through that. So I'm interviewing you. You also interview,
I'll have to
leaders.
get you on mine.
It'll be a pleasure. But
I'd
you
love
do
to.
interview business leaders across the globe. You
Mm.
know, maybe I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, it's a time-consuming process. I run a recruitment business. I do this as an added extra to add value to my community. I do a lot of research beforehand. Um, you know, Time goes into putting a podcast together, and the editing or non-editing that goes on afterwards, and then publishing it. But you know, you are doing it on top of your day job as well. So what's the reason behind the podcast? You know, talk to me about some of the individuals you've interviewed and some of the successes that have happened from that podcast.
I think why I did it was, yes, I think to promote what we're doing, but also I don't think a lot of people in IT get to speak or have a relationship with senior people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's about, because I challenge these senior people, because an example is similar to what I was just saying is, they want to have their users to have a great experience, and I'll stop them on that, because I'll just say, to create a great experience costs a great lot of money,
Yeah.
and most IT departments do not have a great load of money. And so be very careful with those statements. And that, so it's really doing what I would think as an IT professional that I would like to ask a leader, because I think that a lot of people in IT, they're not very empowered.
Mm-hmm.
And, we get frustrated and pissed off, if I can swear. And
You
we
can
never
swear, don't worry.
and we don't get the opportunity to question and say to these decision makers and leaders, like, why aren't you fixing it? So that was the other thing, like, to give voice to IT people by interviewing these quite influential leaders. And my co-host is Wesley Eugene, and Wesley is a former CIO and partner of IDEO. And IDEO, again, a lot of people in IT don't know IDEO, and again, it's not my mission to introduce them. It's an amazing design innovative company, very well known if you work in the design space.
Mm-hmm.
And Wesley actually is our senior vice president in North America, but he's also my co-host, and he's amazing. The lens that he brings into IT service management through design thinking, it's such a different perspective. And I like to say there's nobody else doing it. And I wanted to fill that gap, I guess, also. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think you mentioned earlier on you had David Ratcliffe on the podcast.
I had David Ratcliffe, yes.
What other kind of like inspirational individuals have you had on?
So in my earlier versions, we've had a very prominent doctor
Okay.
who, it's actually in my book. It's quite a sad story, all related to IT. He lost a patient on his round because people followed process.
Mm-hmm.
They escalated it to the nurse, escalated to this doctor, the different hierarchies, very similar to IT. And because it was a cultural thing not to contact the doctors, the specialist directly, time was wasted and the patient died, unfortunately. And so they're developing a software that improves the process. We've also had Marco Bill-Peter from Red Hat. He's a senior vice president for customer experience, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they're all my favourite guests, but one that was very interesting was a police officer.
Nice.
Yeah, very senior police officer ranking in New South Wales. And the story was, I was doing consulting for this New South Wales Police and in IT, and a copper walks in. And I'm like, what's a copper doing in IT? And it turns out, he was running IT. He was the head of service management. So,
Nice.
really interesting. So, yeah, so really, really interesting and, respected experienced leaders on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like you got some really good characters that have been on. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't listened to any of the podcasts, but I will do.
Too busy. That's why you're an entrepreneur.
I'm an entrepreneur, but I love listening to podcasts, so I will add it to my list of
Wonderful.
podcasts
I love that.
to listen to 100%. look, we are coming towards the end of the podcast. I've got a few more kind of questions I want to ask you. One is, look, you being a woman in technology, and women in tech is quite a subject which is prevalent today. What are your kind of like, anyone that's listening at the moment, what are your tips for someone that's looking to enter the world of IT as a woman, and some of the help that they can get? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's made me bring a point up, is that in my podcasts, I'm a bit embarrassed to say this, but unfortunately, we haven't had one woman,
Okay.
because whether I don't know women in because we want to interview very senior prominent people, whether I don't have a network full of that, I don't know. So if any of your listeners are very senior, want to come on, and I'd love that. And yet, it's an interesting world being a woman, I think, in any industry, but I think especially in IT service management, given its history that it was predominantly male. And I did a post on this, that predominantly, the ITIL frameworks or IT service management frameworks were written by men, and predominantly men. Yeah, but I'd really like to give a huge call out to, and the women of IT service management, Sophie, Hussey, and Lucy Greenway. They're doing amazing job, and it's really what our industry needs, is that representation. And women and men are welcome also. I'm sure they've said that also. So yeah, it's great getting this visibility that they're doing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've had both Sophie and Lucy on the podcast previously, and
Yeah.
they're doing wonders, with women of ITSM at the moment, and they're really getting some traction in the community. So yes, and hopefully when I get you on in the future, you would have told me that you would have had a couple of women on the podcast by then.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
There you go.
I'll get Lucy and Sophie on there. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's a target for you to achieve.
Yeah.
Couple more questions. One is, what challenges do you see in the IT service management world over the next kind of like 5 years?
The old AI.
Yeah, just the old AI that comes along.
Yeah, but I still say this, that I hope, certainly when I finish my career, that that IT organisations have managed to have a CMDB. They've managed to map IT services. They've
Definitely.
managed to do the fundamental basics, and then we can talk about AI. As I say, don't worry about AI. And I think, it's obviously going to change tremendously. The tech stack, cloud to where we were, has changed a lot of things, sort of, but things from SLAs, and it does change and evolve. I don't. It's going to be interesting and a little scary, but and Wesley will say this in his amazing wisdom and experience, is that we will always need people, and if we want IT service management to be human centered, people have to do that.
100%.
And that's a really positive thing. And I think, I often say, we've had forms of AI for many, many years, like chatbots, e.g., and we made a pretty dog's breakfast out of that, to be honest. Very rarely do I hear that chatbot was such a great experience. Mostly you hear that was just doing the services. So all those sort of automations and things, and I know that it can tell the sentiment and all that, but it still needs that human touch. So I hope IT service management leverages human-centered design through an AI experience, because to be honest, the AI I have seen so far, I'm not left very impressed.
Yeah.
Respectfully, I'm like, because it's not thinking about the humans using the services.
Yeah. I would vouch for that as well. And look, in IT service management, yeah, if it's all about human-centered design, it's all about people. So
Yep.
I can't see AI taking any jobs drastically over the next 5 years. I still think people are going to be a centre of that.
Yeah, and what I want to do, our mission is that, so to train everybody, but it is, experiences out there, and I'm really happy that you have to create the right experience or positive experience. I want to train IT people so they can. And when I hear that our staff need to be more customer or user focused, my response is, it's like telling someone to be taller or happier. You can't just tell them that. You need fundamental growth and support. And so if we staff to, or IT professionals to be human-centered and customer-focused, there's tools and techniques. It's not just about being nice and understanding. That's what human-centered design teaches us, the tools and techniques to create a positive experience. And I hope that through education and training that IT professionals will use that new skill to develop the AI and IT service management.
Was that another plug-in for your business?
Yes, it was.
Good. I would be doing the same, don't worry. Right, it's not even a question. It's more about finding out a bit more about you outside of work. Obviously, we spoke about you being an entrepreneur. You're very busy, you travel. What do you get up to outside of work? Have you got any hobbies, family life, etc.? You're going to tell me it's all work, 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 aren't you? I can feel it, Katrina.
Yes. No, I'm blushing because it's true. What do I do? Like, I do try and run. That's what I try and do.
Good.
Every time I go to the airport, I buy a book and say I'm going to read, because before the event of the internet and having a business, I used to love reading. I haven't read a proper book for 2 years.
Wow. Okay.
But that's I work a lot, and obviously, as most of us do, I do have my sort of Saturday morning shopping trip and have coffee with friends and that sort of stuff. But then
Nice.
it's back home working. And then, as you know, traveling the world. Have an amazing opportunity to travel around the world and speak at conferences and train, and that's my baby at the moment, and my partner and my pet is my business.
Good. Nothing wrong with that. I can assure you, nothing wrong with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, if anyone that's watching or listening wants to reach out to you, how do they get in contact with you?
Via LinkedIn is usually the best. That's an amazing network. As I said, our business, it's interesting. A lot of people say, do you think LinkedIn's worth it? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really
100%.
great platform on many ways. So LinkedIn, or my website is called HIT Global Services. Yeah.
HIT Global Services. Okay, perfect. Okay, well, listen, thank you very, very much for coming on. It's been lovely, and I hope to have you on again in the future.
Thank you. I can't believe how the time has flown. So it's been an awesome discussion. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'll see you on my podcast soon.
I look forward to it.
Thank you, Gun. Thank you.
Bye.